It's the Stony Stratford YouTube channel again, and today we're talking to a man who now plays for Nottinghamshire and England, but at one point in his past, he was playing for us at Stony Stratford Cricket Club. It's Ben Duckett. Good afternoon, Ben.
Good afternoon, mate.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Just been training this morning, but otherwise not much going on.
How's training? Is it sort of still COVID restricted?
Yeah, it is. We've actually got a tent up outdoors now, so we're into slightly bigger groups than we were before. But yeah, it's still pretty restricted, and you kind of do your training and then you leave basically. So I guess it's better than sitting at home there, which is what I would be doing.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get back to sort of last year and how things went for you then a bit later on. But I want to take you back to, apparently, I've been talking to a few of the guys from Stony, and before even you played for Stony, you played against us for I think the Northampton Academy. 15 years old. From what I'm told, you were barely above the stumps in height, but you still got yourself a 50. Can you remember much about that?
Well, firstly, I'm barely above the stumps now, and I'm 26. So no, it's testing my memory a bit. I think I do remember that actually. I think I was batting lower down the order, and Bellew was playing. I think he was spraying me, giving me a lot of chat. Spraying a little 15-year-old boy.
He hasn't changed.
But yeah, I think the team that was playing for Stony then was quite a good one. So yeah, actually thinking back to that now I was very happy with that knock.
I'm told it was 50 off about 200 balls, or at least that's what Belly tells me.
Yeah, well, that's what he tells you. Yeah, I think 40 of them are off him.
Now, from what I can see on play, and there are lies, damn lies, and there's play statistics. You played for us about 11 times between 2013 and 2017, 9 in the Northampton Premier League, and a couple of cup matches. If we start at the start, how did it all come about that you ended up playing for us?
I'm trying to think back now. I always remember, obviously, because I was at Stowe School, which was the standard of cricket at the weekend is pretty good. So I was always fairly happy, growing up when I was there, not playing club cricket and just playing for my school team. I guess the link was obviously they were in the Northants Prem, and the academy side stopped playing. So I guess then they said to, get a club. And for me, where I was living, Stony was only down the road. I'm trying to think now if I knew any of the lads before. I can't remember. I think I met up with Richo and Strongy. But no, I can't really remember. But I just remember it was very close to where I was living. So it was convenient. And obviously I was not going to play too many games. So it was handy that it was only down the road.
And you seem to have done particularly well for us in the cup. A couple of hundreds, I think, in that. Can you remember much about those?
I remember I got 100 in one of the T20 games, I think, and I was dropped 5 times before I got 50 by the same bloke. So my first 50 runs were horrendous. And then after that, I think I just started slogging it and it was good. But I just remember this one poor bloke was getting moved around the field and I kept hitting it to him and he kept dropping me.
And I think, was that the 100 you got off 44 balls against Overston Park, was it?
Overston, yeah, that was it.
And I'm told, I've been talking to a few people, as I said, Jamie Baxter's one of the guys I've been talking to, who's now our first team captain. You've got a bowl that day, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, no matter what side I'm playing for, I'm always in the captain's ear to try and have a bowl. I mean, I've bowled a few times for Notts as well, so I do like to get the ball in my hand.
And yet you've only bowled 89 balls, I think, in first class cricket. Is that something, and this, slightly jokey question, because obviously you're in the side as a batsman. Would you like to bowl more?
I think I'd have to start practicing because I'm probably the same place as spinner. But no, yeah, I only ever bowl when it's declaration bowling or the game's dead. So, but as soon as that situation's coming, I'll be straight in the captain's ear and letting him know I fancy a few.
Obviously, it was a few years ago. What do you remember about the setup at Stony and any of the people? I'd imagine quite a few of them are still involved now.
Oh, like it was tough because obviously as you say, I only played 11 games, so I was kind of in and out. I might have only been 2 or 3 games a year. So, I was young as well. But, all I remember is it was a very friendly club. The guys that were there were very friendly, still keep in touch with a couple. But yeah, it's just that club cricket vibe, with, family there watching in the evening and stuff. It was always quite nice to get away. Obviously I was at boarding school. So for me, it was nice to kind of get away from that bubble and, go and see the lads and go and play. And yeah, it was just kind of enjoyment. And, for me, that club cricket was kind of take the pressure off me, go and enjoy myself with a bunch of lads on a Saturday or Tuesday evening, whenever it was.
And weirdly, I think you got that 100 against Overston, having played Test cricket the previous winter. That must have been quite a strange situation.
Yeah, you see, that was always the toughest thing in club cricket. Is you'd always, I'd always get sprayed or something, and even get chat about facing off spin. I think it was then, and I don't think the Overston off spinner was quite the same as Ravi Ashwin in Chennai. But you still get that chat, and I say I take the pressure off me, but I sometimes get more nervous playing club cricket than playing for my county, because you're expected to go and score runs. But yeah, it's all a good laugh.
Well, let's look at that Test career. Looking at it, it seems weird because you played those 4 Test matches, Bangladesh and then in India, inside a month. So at the moment, and obviously you're presumably hoping to play more in the future, your international career is sort of encompassed in that little section there. So what do you remember about those Tests other than Ravi Ashwin?
Well, I guess, everyone listening to this and watching this will, it's quite good timing, because obviously the Test match is on at the minute, and I think everyone can see, how good of players are playing in that at the minute, and they're struggling because those conditions are so alien and they're so hard out there. And I only got 4 cracks at it. Obviously I got that 60 in Bangladesh, which was nice. But yeah, it is so tough to go out there and score runs, especially, you see Root, he scored runs in the first game, and he's kind of struggled since then. He's one of the best players that's been in the world. So, I'm watching these young lads now playing, praying they're going to score runs and get through the other side. But, I think it's probably the toughest place to go on tour, on and off the field. But yeah, I'm better for the experience, and I've learned a lot since then. And, I figured out very, luckily at the age of 21, that I had a technique issue against off spin. Some guys might find that out at 26, 27, and that could be your international career over. So, they're things that I've been working on up until now, that, fingers crossed, like, I'd love to go out to India, again in 4 years or whatever, and, try and correct that. That would be something that I'd love to do. So, yeah, as I said, it's an extremely tough place to go. And unfortunately that was the only place I've played.
What is it then that makes it so difficult in India? Is it the pitches? Is it the quality of the spin bowling? Because presumably you don't, you do face people like Ashwin in county cricket occasionally these days, but what is it for you that made it so tough?
Yeah, it's both of those. It's the conditions and the bowlers. They're brought up on those pitches, so they're batters, they're bowlers, they know exactly what to do on those pitches. And we do face spin, but half the games in the county season don't even go to day 4. So the majority of the wickets are taken by seam. And even when it does spin, it's not spinning like it is there, and the consistency of the spinners, you tend to get a bad ball every over or something. So yeah, it's a bit of both. It's just, but I think you can see, even the English bowlers, you got some great spinners out there, and we have over the years, but they don't quite get the same out of the pitch as someone like Ravi Ashwin. So, but yeah, as I say, they've grown up on these pitches. They've bowled out thousands of overs on those type of pitches. So it's pretty natural to them.
So how can it be fixed? Obviously you've got another 10 years of your career going ahead, so that's potentially a couple more trips to India going forward. So what would be the solution for you? Is it a case of turning Trent Bridge into a raging turner? Is it getting Ashwin over and Patel to play at Notts as well? What can sort things out?
Well, luckily, in my first year at Notts, Ashwin was our overseas. So, you know, things like that, you know, yeah, it's obviously great to get those guys over and, you know, to play with him. You know, I faced him in the nets a few times, and little things like I'd walk out of a net for 20 minutes and he's not got me out. Little things like that, that if I was to face him again, I've got that kind of confidence. But yeah, I don't think you can change pitches really to, you know, for one place in the world, you know, that you tour New Zealand, South Africa, Australia. So I think for the sake of trying to win in Asia, making pitches rag loads, you know, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I think it's the quality of spin bowling. I think over the last, you know, 5 to 10 years, it maybe hasn't been there. You know, that there are some good spinners about. You know, you've got Simon Harmer, Jeetan Patel's just finished. You do face the odd good bowler, but the majority of what you face in England is spin. And, you know, that's why England beat India 4-0 most of the times when India come over, because they're not used to facing the swinging, nipping ball. So, you know, it kind of works both ways. I guess you just need a group of players who have been out there, and you know, that's why I think England have only won there once in the past however long. And if you do win over there, you know, I think it's probably the toughest place to win. But, you know, I think the preparation you do before you go, I think they were in the tent before they went out there and they were facing, you know, ragging wickets. But again, they're not facing Ravi Ashwin or, you know, Axar Patel out there. You might be facing someone throwing offies or something. So I think it's very difficult to, you know, try and get the exact same as what you're going to get out there.
So when Ashwin comes over, explain to us how that works, because presumably he wants to help you as a player and he wants to help the county, obviously. But is there a point when you think, well, hang on, he doesn't want to give me too many of his secrets because he knows that in a couple of years' time he might be in his backyard trying to beat him?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on the individual, but Ash was great with us. I mean, anything I asked him, he would want to tell me absolutely everything, no hiding anything. Probably because I think he backs himself to get anyone out, no matter what they know, because he's that good. But yeah, as I said, it depends on the individual. But he was so good with us and so helpful, gave us so much insight into everything. You know, we were preparing ragging wickets when he was here, so kind of to watch him, you know, bowl on them, especially for our young spinners. But yeah, he didn't hold back at all. He gave us, you know, anything we wanted to know.
And are you in contact much with the guys out there at the moment?
Yeah, bits and bobs. I spoke to Dom Sibley in Sri Lanka after he didn't score runs in the first couple of games, kind of thing. And I just kind of said, you know, I probably should have mentioned this a couple of games ago, but I just kind of said, stick to your game. Like, it'll work, you know. And obviously he ended up getting runs in the last game, which I think was big for him going into India. But it's such a tough place to tour, and, you know, I don't think you want too much from an outside point of view. I mean, they've got Root, Stokes there. You know, I don't think necessarily they need me on WhatsApp telling them how to play out there. So I'll leave that to the experts.
Is there a lot of that sort of backing each other up? Because we hear how competitive professional sport is, and obviously that goes up a step with international sport. But do you guys help each other out? Is there a WhatsApp group where all of you talk about this sort of stuff?
No, not really. You know, I've played with a few of those guys from, you know, for the last few years. So little things that you might speak about. You know, I speak to Ollie Pope quite a bit. But yeah, it's a tough one. I'd try and, just because I know what it's like to be over there, and it is tough. And I think when you get off the pitch, really, you want to take your mind off things. You don't want to be sitting on your phone talking about, you know, how good someone is or how tough the conditions are. So, you know, I think for those lads, they're probably pretty happy to switch off, have a beer, have a chat with the boys or something, and kind of get away from it, because it is extremely intense out there.
Okay, so 26 years old now, as you say, you've learned a heck of a lot from that early exposure to international cricket, which some players get, some players don't, some players peak a bit later on. You got back into the white ball bubble, I think, last summer. So where do you see yourself going internationally? Is the focus on the white ball? I mean, you had a good red ball year last year as well. So could you see yourself being a multi-format player going forward?
Yeah, I love playing all formats. I think the thing at the minute, I think in the past I'd have maybe said probably more of a chance in the white ball stuff, but I just think, with how good English white ball cricket is at the minute, it's so hard to break into that side. So that's something that I still want to do. Obviously, there's a World Cup in 3 years or something, and I'd love to be a part of that. But I think after what I did last year, only in a short period of time, but scoring a few hundreds, I've worked extremely hard on my game over the past few years. I'd love to. I'm not thinking about Test cricket or thinking about trying to get into that squad, but first of all, trying to be consistent in red ball cricket, keep scoring hundreds. That's something that I've always wanted to do. I think I'm at the stage now where there's no pressure on me. I just want to kind of go back to enjoying cricket. I'm playing for one of the bigger counties in the country now. So in the white ball stuff, that's to try and win another trophy this year. In the Champo stuff, try and turn around our drought that we've had over the past few years. I want to be a part of a team that's kind of takes Notts back into the right direction. So really for me, it's just about focusing on the team, focusing on myself, trying to score runs, and whatever comes from that, it'll happen, I guess. Just not looking too far ahead.
So was there a stage, you talk about how you want to enjoy your cricket now? Have you gone through a period where you've not enjoyed it as much then?
Yeah, I think, after getting dropped from England and a lot of focus on me to score runs and stuff, a lot of pressure. I probably did battle with myself for a couple of years, and that's partly why I moved to Notts, a bit of a fresh start, work with some new coaches. I always loved playing cricket, but I probably went for a couple of years of just I'm like, why am I not averaging 50 or something? I've only done it once, but I think now I'm at the stage where I've also grown up. I'm 26. I've matured over the last few years, and I think it's just take a bit of pressure off, and that started last summer. I did hours and hours of training last winter and hard work. And just tried to focus on myself a little bit. And by the time the summer came, I could just go and enjoy my cricket. And thankfully, I managed to get some runs as well.
I guess when it's not going well, it must be really tough. I mean, if I don't get any runs for Stony Thirds on a Saturday, I can play next week and I still pay my subs. But for you guys in the pro game, if you don't score runs, it's livelihoods at stake, isn't it? So how difficult is that to take on board? Because obviously you got into cricket as a kid because you wanted to play it because you love it, and now it's your livelihood. So how difficult is that to take on?
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, it's
part of the mortgage when you go out to bat, for instance.
I think you're in a bad place if you're thinking about that when you're going out there. But and that's another thing is in the past I've kind of changed techniques and stuff, and this can go right down to yourself playing on a Saturday or whatever it is. That I think any batsman, they're struggling to score runs. They're always trying to, maybe I need to change this, and I battled with myself for years, kind of changed trigger, changed my hands, changed whatever it was. And it was a big thing last year that I'd done all this hard work. And in the first 2 games, I think I scored 30 or 40 runs in the first 2 games. And I was like, here we go again. In the past, I'd have probably changed something or gone against what I was doing, but I was feeling really good. I'd done all the training. I said to Pete Moores, and I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. If I fail doing that, then at least I've done it my own way. And in that 3rd game, I went on to get 100, and I think that was a massive learning for me. And it can be for any young cricketer or whatever age the cricketer is, that if you stick to what you do, more often than not, it will come off at some stage. But for years, I kind of went away from that and started doing different things. But it was a massive thing last year, actually, if I stick to doing this, then, I'm not going to score runs every single week. I'm going to get low ones. But if I keep doing what I've been practicing, then thankfully it'll come off. And if it doesn't, then, it's the way that I want to do it. And, that's why.
So going back to England, obviously you're on the fringes, you're in the white ball bubble last year. So as somebody on the outside looking in, do you get Chris Silverwood or Ed Smith on the phone every 5 minutes giving you feedback of what they feel you need to do to get back into their lineup?
Unfortunately, not. No. And I always think they've got so many players around the country. They've got to focus on the team, and I think they're busy enough than to be calling around all the players all the time. You know, I, I think potentially I've got to be obviously be very careful with what you say, but potentially communication could maybe be a little bit better. And at times, especially if I look back to when I was 21, I was out the squad and I didn't really have any communication for a few years. And maybe that's when especially not necessarily me right now because I'm not around the squad or anything, but those guys, let's say a couple of the lads get dropped after this series, I think it's so important to then someone goes and says to them, look, this is, you need to do this to get back into the team or whatever it is. We're still watching you. Um, so yeah, no, there's not too much going on. If you're to be in the squad or, as I was in the white ball thing, you get a call up and say you're in or you're not in something. But as I say, they're busy and there's, 100 blokes around the country that, potentially are expecting that call. So
what was it like in the white ball bubble?
Yeah, it was good to be honest. I've obviously played with or against all of those guys. So it was just nice to be sort of back in the fold and, back training with those lads and yeah, just to kind of, half have a foot in the door. I think I was only there for a week, 10 days, but it was nice to try and get some runs in the warm-up games and yeah, show what I could do, I guess.
And you see all these shots. Certainly, when I was a kid, the first shot you learned was the forward defensive, and if you were lucky, you then learned the backward defensive. And now you've got all these ramp shots and things like that. So, how much time in a bubble session do the likes of Joss Butler spend on the ramp shot, for instance?
Well, he wasn't actually there then. Yeah, to be honest, I could only really speak on someone. I could only speak on myself for that, and it's funny. I mean, so the ramp shots or the reverse sweeps, I never practice. I find that when I do play, and this is only me, obviously, if this is a shot that someone isn't, doesn't usually play, then obviously you're gonna have to practice that to get better at it. But yeah, I always find in the nets I kind of shy away from it a bit because you're worried about getting hit. But I find when I play it in a game, there's no net there. I end up playing it better. But yeah, I'm sure these lads, especially in that white ball team, it's so competitive, and each one of them have got to get better each day to stay in that squad. So I'm sure they're learning off each other and playing all these shots in the nets.
And sticking with the white ball stuff, obviously, finals day. I'm a Worcestershire fan, so I remember the year before more than the last one. But obviously, you guys had a much better one last time. What was that like? First of all, how cold was it to play in October? And would you want to play in October again?
I'd rather get it done before October. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones where no matter how cold it is, you run around for 5 minutes and you're fine. I think the only issue is taking high catches under the floodlights in October is a bit interesting. But I think the whole thing last summer was just to get cricket in. I think we'd have played until November if we had to. I think everyone was just, after that first long lockdown, we were all just desperate to play some cricket, whatever the conditions were or how cold it was.
Was it weird not having fans during the season?
Yeah, it was extremely weird. More really for finals day because that day is really made by the fans. And I always say that day is as close as you'll get to international cricket, having a full house in. But yeah, I think some players struggled more. I know, a mate of mine, Alex Hales, I think he really did struggle last year with no fans in. I think for someone like him or lads who have, played in front of packed houses for the last 10 years, I think some people struggled to get up for it. But yeah, I think we were pretty good as a squad just to kind of crack on and we knew what job we had to do. And whether there were people there or not, we knew what we had to do.
What did it feel like to get your club over the line on the day, especially after
Yeah,
what this year?
yeah. I think to be there at the end in any game, especially in the final, was really special. And as you say, yeah, I think it was written for me last year to be there at the end after the year before. Again, another massive learning thing. For me, they're the kind of moments that I really want to be in. And I think after 2018 or whenever it was, people can question or doubt that. So I think, like I always say, I've said in interviews recently that I was lucky to have that opportunity to do it again the year later. Because, in other teams or whatever, you might have to wait 4 or 5 years for that, and you're carrying that monkey on your back for however long. But, for me, that first year at Notts, when I didn't get the lads over the line, I think it's kind of forgotten now after last year. It's just a shame the Notts fans weren't in to see it, but I'm sure they were all watching on TV.
Now you look at the Notts squad, and you think that's a squad that should be winning lots and lots of trophies. Are you confident that what's gone wrong maybe over the last 2 or 3 years will be put right this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to at some stage, and I think we've got some new players coming in, and we're strengthening our team. And look, it's a tough one. I mean, we should have won 2 out of the 5 games last year. If it wasn't for rain, we would have easily won 2 of them. So we were definitely going in the right direction last year, and that's for someone like me as a more senior batter to put my hand up this year and go, I'm going to score 1,000 runs and put us in that position, because I think we've got Broady for maybe 3 or 4 games this year. We've got some great young bowlers. So for us young batters there, if we can put our hands up and get ourselves in positions to win, then I think we are in a good place. I said that last year, and we only had 5 games, so it was tough to do that. So I'm sure at some stage we're going to get it right. So fingers crossed it's this year.
And you mentioned briefly Alex Hales there. You've got Joe Clark and Hasib Ahmed as well around the squad. They've all been in and around the England scene at various points, and many people want to see them back in again. Can you see those 3 players making their way back into the international scene?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think Hales is a different one, and he's in the top 5 best players in England without a doubt. So I won't speak on him too long, because it's obviously the issues. It's not his cricketing ability. So I'm pretty sure they're keen on him, and the way he's going, then he's got a good chance. Joe Clark, I think he's certainly one of the best young players in the country. The amount of hundreds, I think he's scored 1,700s, and he's 24 or something. So I think he's it's a big year for him. Haas maybe slightly different. I think he's had a tough couple of years at Lancs. So for me, if I was speaking to him, it would be to he's at a new club now. Come over to us and enjoy it, and lead by example at the top of the order. And as it's the same advice I give to myself, is not to even think about playing for England. If Haas goes and scores 1,000 runs for the next couple of years, then I'm sure he'll be back in the frame. But I think it's when you start thinking too far ahead, that's when you put a bit more pressure on yourself. So I mean, you name only 3 there. We've got a few more, but the talent in the squad is very good.
I'm moving away from domestic. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've played franchise cricket in Pakistan, Australia, and South Africa. There may be more, but what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, franchise cricket, I think it's so good. I mean, you're playing with the best players in the world. So yeah, that standard of cricket is kind of that next level above county cricket. And some of the sides are on par with international teams. And this is why, for me personally, I'm so for the 100 ball. I know it's a controversial one, and there's plenty of people around the country who have got different opinions on it. But for me as a young player, I think the 100 is just that slight step above, just with the players that are playing in the competition. And I think that any player that's involved in it, any young English player, I think can only improve by playing in that. And that's what I've been lucky to play with. People like Shane Watson, like that, who have played that many T20 games, and you can watch them go about their business and kind of pick their brains. So it's a great thing to be involved in, and fingers crossed there'll be a few more comps in the next few years.
And I saw your tweet earlier on about Kieran Pollard and his 6 6s. Presumably, you're looking forward to playing for him for Welsh Fire this summer.
Well, exactly, and obviously he's played 400 plus T20 games, so it might not just be I'm not necessarily looking at anything technical from him. I don't think me and him could be any different as cricketers. But just the kind of the way he goes about it in pressure situations, or how he leads the team. If he is to be captain, or I'm sure he'll lead even if he's not. But yeah, exactly. To play with someone like him is just it's something that if this competition didn't go ahead, you wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah, to share the dressing with him, I think it's gonna be pretty cool.
So how difficult is it in top line sport to just give it a whack, if you see where I'm coming from? Because obviously on a Saturday afternoon for Stony thirds, if I make a mistake and I get out playing a silly shot, no one really cares. But you guys, like Pollard today, he had to take a fair amount of risks to get those 6 6s. So how do you get your mindset working towards doing that?
Well, I guess, again, it depends on the individual. So for someone like me, I mean, I couldn't dream of hitting 6 6s in an over. I mean, in a match, let alone an over. So yeah, I think it's different on the individual. I think I actually went away from my game 2 years ago when I moved to Notts. These guys were all hitting it 20 rows back, and I wanted to do that as well. And it's just not my game, and I was getting caught on the boundary or whatever. Yeah, so for some of the guys in the world now, it's too easy for them to go out there and hit sixes from ball one. But yeah, I guess for someone like myself, or someone it's not that game, I think try and stick to what you do, and it can be boring. It doesn't look as pretty as whacking the ball 20 rows back or hitting it out of the club ground on a Saturday. But I think you got to maximise what you've got, and for me, unfortunately, that's fours behind square.
So looking ahead over the next 5-10 years, as presumably we get more of the 100, we get more T10, T20, are you confident that your game, which if it isn't about putting the ball into the stand, that players like you will still have a place?
Yeah, I think in some teams it's potentially one of the more important roles in the side. For me, I felt like I was, and my role last year for Notts was kind of to be the glue of the team. There were a few games in the group stages where we lost early wickets, or we lost a few wickets, and I had to get the lads over the line. And for me, getting 55 not out of 38 balls or something, it's I want to be scoring 100 or 40, but sometimes that's just not possible, or so. Yeah, I think the only thing with that role is there's only a space, one or two spaces in each team around the world. I think the game is moving forward, and they want people who are whacking it out of the ground, which is a skill in itself. So, the Kane Williamsons, the Root, obviously Root's obviously being left out of the England T20 team now because Milan's come in. So I think for someone like him being dropped, it shows that there's only a couple of spots available for someone who plays like that.
And you just come back from a spell in Abu Dhabi, playing T10. Another format along with the 100 that, let's just say, slightly maligned maybe by, black old traditionist 40-year-old blokes like myself maybe. But how did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those competitions that people have opinions, but I'm sure everyone would love to get a go to play in it. I mean, I think it's known as just a bit of a laugh. I was actually surprised it was a lot more serious than I realised. But it's a kind of competition that you've got to go out there and express yourself, and have zero pressure on you, and just go out and enjoy it. And luckily I had Chris Gale in my team, to share. He's one of those names that in 30 years' time, just to say that I've shared a dressing room with him is quite cool. So yeah, little things like that. But yeah, it was great fun. I can't see that format really kicking off at the minute. But it's quite a big franchise comp over there. But yeah, it was a good couple of weeks.
And on the subject of Mr. Gale, I appreciate you possibly can't say too much, but is he anything like in person, like the legend is, if you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's around the cricket and stuff, and he's quite quiet. I don't know if he'd be different in a West Indies dressing room with all of his mates. But certainly after games and stuff, we'd have a few beers in the team room. Yeah, he'd come to life a little bit more. I'll leave it at that.
That's fair enough. Just one final question then, Ben. Thanks so much, as I said, for doing this with us. Hopefully, we've got some young players at Stony who are watching this, and we've got some talented lads and lasses as well who are coming through the system. If you had one piece of advice for our young guys and girls listening and watching this, what would it be?
It's a good question. I think, for me, it is all really about enjoying it. Especially if I was, because it is tough when you only get an opportunity once a week in club cricket or something. So, and I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of my weekend was ruined if I didn't get any runs. There's plenty more, and I think something like this now with this pandemic, there's plenty more to life. So I think for those guys and girls, just to get out there this summer and just really enjoy it. And I think this will have made people realize how much they missed the game. It would be just to not put too much pressure on yourself. Go and express yourself and enjoy it.
Like us, follow us, watch us. It's Stony Stratford Cricket Club.